Tales from the House of Bunnicula, Howie Monroe and the Doghouse of Doom, by James Howe, illustrated by Brett Hellquist. Howie's Writing Journal. Last night, Pete got into trouble with Mr. and Mrs. Monroe. He was supposed to write a story for school, but he didn't, and now he's getting an F. I don't know what that is, but it must be bad because Mr. Monroe said, "I can't believe my son, the son of an English professor, got an F on a writing assignment." Pete said, "How was I supposed to write a story when I didn't have an idea?" I wonder if it's like a stain. I remember the one time I got in trouble for drooling on something Mr. Monroe had written. It left a stain, but it wasn't my fault. I was just happy to see him. Pete and I don't usually agree about things. Maybe that's because he's an 11-year-old boy and I'm a puppy. But I think it's mostly because we don't look at things the same way.
Who's Pete?
One of the Monroe boys. This time, though, I had to agree with him. I know what it's like trying to write when you don't have an idea.
I thought it was Gerald and Harold.
Like now, I'm supposed to be writing a third book in my series, Tales from the House of Bunnicula, and I used up all my ideas in my first two. I asked Uncle Harold what to do. Uncle Harold wrote all these books about our rabbit Bunnicula, so he knows a thing or two about writing. He said, "Well, Howie, the big question a writer has to ask himself is, when do I get paid?" That wasn't what I was going to say. When do I get my picture on the cover of the Canine Quarterly? "Howie," Uncle Harold said, giving me that look he gets sometimes when he thinks I'm not taking life seriously. Personally, I don't think life should be taken seriously, except maybe when your food dish is empty, or you really, really, really need to go out, and everybody's saying, "It's your turn to walk the dog." Anyway, what he told me is that the big question writers ask is, what if? Which I guess I knew already. "You have to put yourself in the place of others, Howie," he went on. "Ask how you'd feel if what happened to someone else happened to you, or if you could do something impossible like fly, or stay awake for more than 2 hours in a row."
What? That's
Exactly.
crazy.
I don't think a book about staying awake for 2 hours and 15 minutes will sell many copies. I better ask a different what if. What if? What if? What if? What if I were like that kid in the book Toby's been reading to Uncle Harold and me every night? The kid that has a pretty interesting life. His parents have died, see? And he lives with these really mean relatives. But then he discovers he's got special powers. And when he goes off to a school to learn how to use them, he finds out he's famous. And that's it! I know just what I'm going to write. Hey, that what if comes in pretty handy. Maybe if Pete had used it, he wouldn't have gotten an F.
I thought it was gonna be a series of unfortunate events.
What was he talking about?
What?
What book series are they reading to him?
Bunnicula?
No, he said Toby's been reading to Uncle Harold and me every night. That kid has a pretty interesting life. His parents have died, see?
Oh,
and he lives with these really mean relatives. But then he discovers he's got special powers, and when he goes off to a school to learn how to use them, he finds out he's famous.
Superman? R.L. Stein?
Are you guys kidding me?
Goosebumps?
Are you both kidding me?
I'm trying to think.
A boy whose parents died.
Batman?
And he lives with relatives that are
Spider-Man.
mean to him.
Spider-Man?
They make him live in a closet under the stairs.
Harry Potter!
Yes, and he discovers he has powers. And he goes to a school to learn how to use those powers.
See, there's this...
Yes, they're talking about Harry Potter.
There's this movie called Spy Kids Are just like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Howie Monroe and the Doghouse of Doom by Howie Monroe. Chapter 1. The Important Letter. Howie Monroe was as smart as a whip and as cute as a button, but that didn't stop him from being an orphan. He lived with his mean aunt and uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, and their wretched, runny-nosed sons, Toby and Pete. Note to the real Monroes, this is only a story. You are not mean, wretched, or runny-nosed, except maybe for Pete. sometimes. The Monroes made Howie sleep under Pete's bed, which was a dark and scary place full of all kinds of creepy stuff, including several generations of dust bunnies. See Book 1. It Came from Beneath the Bed, by Howie Monroe. They were so mean to him, they fed him every other day, and even then were so stingy they gave him only kibbles or bits. Howie Monroe dreamed of a better life, where he would not be called dumb dog all the time, and everyone would recognize how special he was. How do you ask? Did he know he was special? He knew because when he noticed his face reflected in his water dish, he saw that he was as cute as a button. When he did the crossword puzzle in his mind, while sleeping under the single sheet of newspaper that he was sometimes provided for warmth on a cold winter's night, he knew he was as smart as a whip. And besides, he had a mysterious pain in his back left leg that he was sure was a mark of his being an unusual dog with special powers. One day he got a letter in the mail. It was a good thing that none of the Monroes were home. Otherwise, Pete and Toby would have folded it into a paper airplane and flown it over his head while he yipped and chased after it.
That's so funny. The first Harry Potter movie. Letter. Going in the fire, and then the house gets flooded.
This time, he ran quickly to read it under Pete's bed. And what a lucky thing he did, because it was a letter that would change his life forever. Dear Resident, it began promisingly, you too could be a dog wizard. Take this simple test to find out.
Dog whiz.
1. Do you live with cruel relatives who make you sleep in a dark and scary place? Howie looked around at the cobwebs and dust bunnies. Check. 2. Do you have an unusual physical characteristic that has great significance that won't be revealed to you until an important point in the story? Howie thought of the bursitis in his back left leg. Check. Number 3. Do you have a spirit of adventurer, a sharp mind, and $10 to return with the enclosed application to the Dog Whiz Academy for Canine Conjurers? Howie glanced at the crumpled $10 bill lying under a heap of Pete's smelly, dirty socks. Check. There's Howie checking the mail.
Oh, I see. I like that white thing. Wait, what? Where?
He's checking the mailbox.
I know.
What do you mean, where?
Where's the money?
Well, they didn't show that part. This is him checking
Where's
the
the
mail.
money? Give me my money.
Yes, he was going to the Dog Whiz Academy for Canine Conjurers. He, Howie Monroe, cute, adorable, but pitiful enough to make the reader feel sorry for him, was going to find out how special he really was. He might even get to eat kibbles and bits. Howie's writing journal. Uncle Harold said I'm off to a good start, although the story reminded him of something, but he couldn't place it. Then he said he didn't think my readers would know what bursitis is. When he asked me how I knew what it was, I told him I'd heard Mr. Monroe complaining about his bursitis after attempting a full lotus position while doing one of his yoga tapes. Uncle Harold felt I should define bursitis for my readers. Okay, here goes. Bursitis, noun, inflammation of a bursa. Bursa, noun, a bodily pouch or sac between a tendon or a bone. Tendon, noun, a tough cord or band of dense white fibrous connective tissue that unites a muscle with some other part as a bone and transmits the force that the muscles exert. Fibrous, adjective, containing, consisting of, or resembling fibers. Fiber, noun, a thread or a structure of object resembling a thread, as my definition of bursitis. Bursitis, noun, a mysterious pain in the back left leg that has great significance that won't be revealed until an important point in the story. Chapter 2. Whiz on Wheels. Even though Howie was a daring, adventurous, and ready for anything kind of puppy, he didn't want to go to the Dog Whiz Academy for Canine Conjurers all by himself. So he asked his best friend, Delilah, to go with him. He knew she would like the idea of going to his school because she was very, 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 very smart. See Book 2, Invasion of the Mind Swappers from Asteroid 6 by Howie Monroe. Delilah was a dog who lived down the street. She had curly blonde ears, long eyelashes that moved faster than a hummingbird's wings, and, as was mentioned in the previous paragraph, a fine mind in good working order. Following the directions contained in the letter he received after sending in his application and $10, Howie led Delilah to the place where they were to wait for a minivan with the words "Whiz on Wheels" written on its side. Dean, can you stop? Can you stop? Can you stop and be still, please? Thank you. The place was an abandoned gas station on the wrong side of the tracks. When the Whiz on Wheels showed up, the doors would open, and they were to say, "Lippity up." Here they are, waiting at the gas station.
Wait, can I hold the book, Titsy? For what? The train?
No, it's for a bus to take them to the...
Hey, can I hold the book, Titsy? 3/4.
3/4. Oh, platform 9 3/4. All right, Dean.
Okay. Right where my thumb is.
"I'm ever so grateful you invited me to join you, Howie," Delilah said in a British accent as they waited.
You put it in a British
"Why are you
accent.
speaking?" "I'm ever so grateful you invited me to join you, Howie," Delilah said in a British accent as they waited. "Why are you speaking in a British accent?" Howie asked. Delilah did not have to answer for this. It was only the beginning of things not being what they had been before becoming oddly, strangely different. Suddenly, a van the color of night, well, more like dusk, really, pulled up in front of the abandoned gas station on the wrong side of the tracks. The doors opened. It was impossible to see inside. Howie and Delilah looked at each other, gulped, and said, "Ippity up." All at once, they were floating through the air, up, up, up into the van. The door closed behind them.
Okay, that's from the 4th movie, right?
"All aboard for Dog Whiz," said a disembodied voice.
Okay.
The van lurched forward. There was no driver in sight. "Wow!" said Howie as he looked at the other dogs already seated. "Blimey!" said Delilah. "Hello!"
Hey.
"Hello!" said the scraggly-looking puppy Howie sat down next to. "Hello," said Howie. "Who are you?" "I'm Snivel," said the dog. "I'm poor, but please don't hold that against me. I come from a long line of canine conjurers. My brothers and sisters all went to Dog Whiz, and now I'm going too. I'm going to be your new best friend." Howie liked Snivel right away.
What is Ron supposed to
"Yep. I'm," he started to say. And who is Delilah supposed to be?
Hermione.
Yeah, because she's very, 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 very smart.
Honestly, she's the only girl in there.
I know. He started to say, by way of introducing himself, but he felt a sudden twinge of pain in his back left leg. "Ooh!" he moaned. "My bursitis." "Did you say bursitis?" said Snivel. "Wow, you're Howie Monroe. My new best friend is Howie Monroe." How did Snivel know who he was? Howie glanced worriedly at Delilah. Delilah glanced worriedly at Howie. Howie was worried that something terrible was going to happen once they arrived at Dog Whiz. Delilah was worried that she was going to be saddled with a British accent for the rest of the story. Chapter 3. The evil force whose name cannot be spoke. When Howie arrived at Dog Whiz, everyone stared at him
Voldemort.
and muttered, "That's Howie Monroe! That's Howie Monroe!" Howie thought this was strange at first, but then decided it was very nice. Everyone must have read his first 2 books, It Came From Beneath the Bed by Howie Monroe, and Invasion of the Mind Swappers from Asteroid 6 by Howie Monroe, which turned out to be true. But it was not the reason everyone recognized him. Everyone recognized him because of his bursitis. A giant dog named Hamlet explained it all to him. "Your parents, Howard and Heather," Hamlet told him,
were conjurers. Oh, the first order. I tell you, laddie, they were known far and wide for their conjuring.
Is that supposed to be Hagrid?
Yeah. Howie wondered at Hamlet's way of speaking in apostrophes.
But there's an evil force in the world, boy lad. So evil his name cannot be spoke. When you speak of him, you must say the evil force whose name cannot be spoke.
What?
Cool, Howie thought. So I guess that's him. I guess that's the dog Hagrid.
He's big like Hagrid.
Uh-huh.
Can you hold it?
You can see the castle in the background, and the moon is like right above it.
Well, that's when they first meet. And he's like,
Well, they meet, actually, Hagrid meets Harry first when he gets him as a baby. But
Wait,
then he
what?
meets him again on his birthday when he breaks into that, lighthouse where the Weasleys are. Not Weasleys, though.
And then,
The Voldemort!
what's his name?
The
Who?
The
Voldemort!
kid that was a brood.
Voldemort?
Like that was his cousin?
Dudley.
Dudley, yeah.
And then he gets a rat tail.
Oh, he gets a pigtail.
One of those, because they're...
This evil force is big.
Hamlet went on. You mean big as in powerful? Howie, the ever-curious dachshund puppy, asked.
No, I mean big as in fat.
Hamlet explained.
One day, the evil force whose name cannot be spoke did a terrible thing. The most terrible thing ever done. He destroyed your parents, lad, the good and saintly Howard and Heathered, and he nearly destroyed you too. He would have if you hadn't a run for it.
Howie was disturbed. How could Hamlet have used an apostrophe in saintly when he hadn't even dropped a letter? Still, he sensed that there were more important questions to ask. Why did the evil force whose name cannot be spoke destroy my good and saintly parents? How did I escape? Why don't I remember any of this? When do we get to eat?
Aye, you'll be eating in the chamber of chow soon enough. But before you go, let me tell you the rest of the story. The evil force whose name cannot be spoke did like your parents because of the way they treated him back in grade school. And being an evil force and all, he was one to hold a grudge. He also didn't care for the way your parents used their conjuring powers for good and not for evil.
Also, why he's telling
That just got on his nerves. So one day, he sat on 'em.
Howie gasped. The picture that came to his mind was not a pretty one.
They was squished, pure and simple. There's no there's no nicer way to put it, boyo. But you frisky, quick-footed thing, you ran out of the way just in time, and all you were left was...
Bursitis in my back left leg, Howie said, finishing the sentence for him. What need?
Grayson's nail. Like toenail.
Okay. Aye, said Hamlet. You've got the gift, laddie boy, oh boy, kitty, me laddie-o. You're meant for conjuring. That's what they'll learn you here. But be warned. Laddie boy, oh boy, kitty, me laddie-o. The evil force whose name cannot be spoke has got it in for you. He's just been waiting for you to claim your special powers, and when you do...
What? Howie asked as a cloud of concern passed over Hamlet's brow. I'm really doing his voice almost more of like a Australian, and I can't get out of it.
Just don't go near the Doghouse of Doom. That's all I can tell you.
The supper bell rang, and Howie, hungrier than he'd ever been in his whole life, ran off to join his friends in the Chamber of Chow. On his way, he passed a small...
What?
That was a boom.
On his way, he passed a small building under a tree. The tree was whistling. A talking frog named Hoppy said to him, Hoppy doesn't want you to go near that small building, sir. It's not a good idea, sir.
Oh, I know what this...
Hoppy. Who's Hoppy supposed to be?
Hoppy is
The elf.
McGonagall.
Mm-mm. Hoppy doesn't want you to go near that small building, sir.
It's a
It's not a
window.
good idea, sir.
What's it called?
Dobby.
Dobby, yeah.
I did not.
But why is the tree whistling? Howie asked.
Copywriting? Is this copywriting?
That is the whistling willow. No, it's called parody. They're making fun of. It's okay if you copy some stuff if you're making fun of
Like
it.
the weird Harry Potter.
You know how in this book they also made fun of R.L. Stein and Goosebumps? Yeah, same
Yeah,
thing.
what was it called?
Spine chillers?
Yeah.
What it was called?
No.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't it.
Flesh crawler.
That's it. Flesh crawlers. Good job. What is the... Can I read?
Weeping Willow.
The Whomping Willow is what it's
Whomping
called.
Willow,
Yes.
whatever.
But this is the Whistling Willow.
Willow's
Okay.
The
Is a real tree. No, Weeping Willow is a real tree.
Wait, what?
That is the whistling... That is the Whistling Willow, Hoppy told him. Its music is charms that will lure you to the small building, sir. And oh dear, sir, Hoppy cannot say the rest, sir. No, indeed, sir. It, sir, wouldn't be so wise, sir.
Why is he saying sir so much?
Because Dobby says sir a lot. Howie wondered why everyone spoke so oddly here. Then he remembered that he was the author. So he supposed it was probably because he made them talk that way.
And it's made Dad talk like that.
Is that the Doghouse of Doom? Howie asked. Hoppy hopped away. Hoppy cannot say, sir. Oh, no, sir. Hoppy cannot say. Howie stood frozen to the spot. The Whistling Willow whistled. I'm a little teapot, almost succeeding in luring him to the Doghouse of Doom. But the song reminded Howie that he was hungry. Off he ran to the chamber of Chow. He could hardly wait to eat.
Like the hole?
Howie's writing journal. Uncle Harold says I have an impressive vocabulary for a puppy. Wow! I impressed Uncle Harold. That means a lot to me, because I think Uncle Harold is an awesome good writer. He told me, I like the characters named Hamlet and Hoppy, although they seem familiar somehow. And then he said, maybe I was being a little too self-promotional because I mentioned my other book several times. I told him I wasn't being self-promotional. I was providing valuable information to the reader. He said, uh-huh, and walked away. Well, I'd better get back to my writing. I can't wait to find out what happens next, either. Guess I'll have to write it to find out. Note to myself, what does vocabulary mean? Look it up. Chapter 4. Bacon Malcontent and the Aerated Elasticus. That night, Howie, Delilah, and Snivel were hanging out in the student lounge, eating. Remember, Snivel was the
Yeah, first person you met.
yeah, it was like Ron, yeah. Eating popcorn balls and watching I Dream of Jeannie on Nick at Night, when Bacon Malcontent and his two stooges, Grab and Run, stepped in front of them and blocked their view. Who's Bacon Malcontent and Grab and Run?
I know.
The Three Stooges.
Mm-mm.
No, I know. Harry, wait, can I say it?
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting on.
Malfoy.
Malfoy?
Malfoy's two minions.
Malfoy
And Crab and Goyle.
Dad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said it first.
You only said Malfoy.
Minions.
Oh my goodness. Excuse me, Snivel said politely. You're blocking our view. Yes, said Delilah. We're coming to one of the best bits, and we'd be ever so grateful if you'd step aside. Bacon Malcontent was a terrier whose superior breeding had left him with a permanent sneer. Grab and Run were mutts, but they'd forgotten that fact ever since Bako, as everyone called Bacon Malcontent, had let them run with him. So, said Bako with a sneer, which he couldn't help since it was a permanent and all, you're the famous Howie Monroe, bursitis boy. Howie felt the pain in his back left leg flare up. He didn't like being called bursitis boy. Yeah, so, he replied cleverly to Bako's taunt. Just watch out, Bako said. For the Doghouse of Doom? Howie asked. The Doghouse of Doom, laughed Bako. That's a good one, isn't it, boys? Grab and Run laughed too, though their eyes remained as empty and as finely tuned as a finely tuned concert piano. Howie's writing journal. Uncle Howard just glanced at what I was writing.
Harold!
What did I say?
Howard.
That's what it says. Howie's writing journal. Uncle Howard just glanced at what I was, should be Harold, but they wrote in here, Harold. Writing, and said that I used that concert piano smile in another book. See book 1. It came from beneath the bed. By Howie Monroe. And besides, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why things have to make sense. Grab and Run laughed too, though their eyes remained as empty as a cat's bowl after the dog had gotten there first. Huh? Bako snorted. Everybody has to watch out for the Doghouse of Doom, you bursitis boy. You, bursitis boy, have to watch out for us. Bako, Grab, and Run walked away, bumping into one another as they went. Howie turned to Delilah and Snivel. I'm worried, Snivel said. Bako means trouble. Delilah immediately pulled out the notebook she carried everywhere and wrote in her glossary of magic terms, Bako equals trouble. Delilah wasn't as smart as she made you think she was. It was in inanimate objects class the next morning, while reading aloud a passage from Flying Hydrants by Altitudinous Airedale, that Howie found out just how much danger he was in. A spitball hit him in the back of the head. Professor Sneak, he called out. A spitball hit me in the back of the head. Sneak sneered. Howie marveled at the alliteration.
Professor Snape.
Uh-huh. That is not a spitball, the professor told Howie, his words dripping contempt even as his lips dripped drool. One would think our most gifted student would be able to recognize an aerated elasticus when he is hit by one in the back of the head. Bako, Grab, and Run snickered. Snick snickered too. Howie had a sudden craving for a candy bar. That was nothing more than a rubber band, Delilah said after class, once again proving that she did not know a thing or two. Someone snapped a rubber band at you, Howie, and I think I know who it was. Bako? No. Grab? No. Run? No. Who then? It wasn't me, Snivel sniveled. I'm your friend, Howie. Of course it wasn't you, Snivel, said Delilah. She reminded herself to be patient with Snivel, who meant well, but really wasn't as smart as she was, and also suffered from being a boy. It was someone from another dimension. Someone who is determined to get you, Howie. Someone who has been after you ever since he flattened your family. Howie gasped. Surely you don't mean... Yes, Delilah said. I mean the evil force whose name could not be spoke, whose real name, by the way, is Herbert. I read it in a book. There was a peal of thunder. The lights dimmed and went out. It was dark as the inside of a finely tuned concert piano. Howie wondered if the Dogwiz Academy for Canine Conjurers had forgotten to pay its electric bill. Chapter 5. The Writing on the Wall.
Oh, I remember this.
When the lights...
It's like in the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the
Chamber of
spiders.
Secrets.
Yep.
And then the spiders come.
Yep.
When the lights came back on, Howie was all alone. A message was scrawled on the wall. Next to him in red paint. Or was it paint? Maybe it was ketchup!
Huh?
Howie read the words that were meant for his eyes alone. Don't call me Herbert. My name is the evil force whose name cannot be spoke. There's Howie finding the writing on the wall.
Dude, can I hold it? That line was the worst.
Your line was the worst.
Don't call me Herbert. My name is the name who cannot be
The
spoken.
evil force who can.
Wait, don't call me Herbert. My name is the evil force who
Cannot be spoken. Nam?
Why is it N-A-M?
whose name cannot be spoken. Cannot be spoke. Because it's in an accent. It's in a British accent.
Mom? Wait, do it again?
Whose name cannot be spoke.
Oh.
Dad,
Yes.
that is terrible.
Terrible.
They should have done a better one.
Is it Charles Barkley? Terrible? Terrible. Touchy, touchy, thought Howie. But where had Delilah and Snivel gone? Howie took a step forward and slipped on a banana peel. Someone, or something, chuckled. The message on the wall vanished. Howie thought it might be a good time to check the schedule for the next whiz on wheels out of there. I want to go home, he whimpered pathetically, enough to make the reader reach for a tissue. Oh, but you can't go home, sir. No, sir. That you mustn't, sir.
Bobby.
It was Hoppy, the talking and increasingly annoying frog. Why can't I go home? Howie asked. Because you have a mission, sir, said Hoppy. And Hoppy is here to help you achieve it. If you do, then Hoppy will be turned into his former self.
Real.
A prince? Howie asked. No, a tadpole, said Hoppy. Hoppy was as happy as a tadpole. There was so little pressure. There's pressure being a frog? You have no idea. It was true. Howie had no idea. But what is my mission? Howie asked. Hoppy hopped around in every direction to make sure they weren't being watched. Then, when he was sure, he motioned for Howie to bend down. This wasn't hard, since Howie was a wire-haired dachshund and already pretty much eye-to-eye with the talking frog. You must do something Hoppy told you never to do, Hoppy told Howie. Talk with my mouth full? Howie asked, surprised. No, that was your aunt. Hoppy told you you must never enter the Doghouse of Doom. Well, now you must, sir. You must enter the Doghouse of Doom to defeat the evil force whose name cannot be spoke.
Dad.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's basically the Chamber of Secrets.
Hmm. Is that all? The brave and daring, not to mention heroic Howie asked. Actually, no, said Hoppy. First, you must go to the sweltering swamp and find the lost key to the tail-wagger triangle, where you are to go and release the seven-headed schnauzer. After which, you must find homes for the wandering ghosts of the corridors of captivity. Then, take a nap. Following which you will crawl through a tunnel of terrible things, swim the lake of laughable luck, climb the mountain of monstrous mischief, pass all your exams, win the world championship in fetcher for dog whiz, and make a quarter materialize from behind Professor Snake's right ear. I can do that, Howie, the heroic and brave, not to mention daring dachshund, replied. The nap part, anyway. It wasn't long before Howie had gone to the sweltering swamp and found the key to the tail-wagger triangle, released the seven-headed schnauzer, found homes for the wandering ghost of the corridors of captivity, taken a nap, crawled through the tunnel of terrible things, swum the lake of laughable luck, climbed the mountain of monstrous mischief, taken a second nap, passed all his exams, won the world championship in fetch for dog whiz, and made a quarter materialize from behind Professor Snake's right ear. Piece of cake, said Howie, who wasn't even winded. You could have done it without that second nap, Bako said, smirking. Bako smirking was even less likable than Bako sneering. Anyway, Brasidas boy, now you have to enter the Doghouse of Doom. It's been nice knowing you. Not! Bako threw back his head and laughed. Grab and Run threw back their heads too, but they forgot to catch them. In the distance, the whistling willow whistled, the itsy-bitsy spider. Howie felt the power of the music, felt himself being pulled to the doghouse, pulled to his fate, pulled to his doom.
Let me see. Doom. Where's the doom? Doom? It's a question.
It's question and exclamation mark.
Doom?
And all caps.
Doom?
The seven-headed schnauzer was a fluffy.
Something like that,
The
yeah.
three-headed dog?
Yeah.
It's in. But wait, they have to have Voldemort Also,
teacher.
Professor Quirrell?
Dad.
Yes, I need to have it.
Dad.
It's not a book.
We'll see. It's like mixing
Dad,
a lot of the books.
turn
Yes, Steve.
the dog into a snake, and now it's a hydra.
Okay. It's true. Chapter 6. Into the Doghouse of Doom. It was the night before Howie was to face his longtime enemy, the evil force whose name could not be spoke, a.k.a. Herbert. And his bursitis was hurting so badly he could barely walk. But walk he did, all the way to the little cabin on the other side of the sweltering swamp where Hamlet lived with his pet bloatfish Wanda. Delilah and Snivel went with him, mainly because Howie didn't want Delilah to be mad at him because she had such a small part in this book.
I wouldn't have think this give away, Howie,
Hamlet told Howie as he and his friends drank the crabgrass tea Hamlet had made for them. Fewer apostrophes, please, the gracious and polite, not to mention well-mannered Howie said. I can't understand a thing you're saying.
Sorry,
said Hamlet.
What I said was, I want you to take this gift with you, Howie. It'll protect you from you know who.
Hamlet handed Howie a small mirror. Howie checked to see if he had any crabgrass stains in his teeth, then asked, How will this protect me?
It is said, said Hamlet, that the face of the evil force whose name cannot be spoke is so fearful no one may look upon it without turning to plastic. If you hold the mirror afore you, then perhaps the evil force whose name cannot be spoke will see his own face first, and then he'll be turned into plastic afore
I'm turned to plastic, Howie said, finishing the sentence for him. He hated the idea of being turned to plastic. It was so permanent, not to mention tacky. Thank you, he said to Hamlet.
Aye, laddie boy, laddie-o,
said Hamlet. And don't forget,
we'll be right there with you when you go in tomorrow.
Aye, said Snivel. Thou we will. Delilah didn't say a word. She sniffed softly and wiped the corner of an eye with one of her long, blonde, curly ears. A lump formed in Howie's throat. What if he went into the Doghouse of Doom and never came out? Would he ever again return to Centerville? To the family who made him miserable? But hey, isn't that what families are for? Would he ever again sleep under Pete's bed? Would he ever again eat kibbles or bits while the rest of his family gorged themselves on 9-course meals and 3-layered cakes? Would he ever again go to use the words ever again in a sentence? These thoughts continued to trouble him. The next day he was The next day he tried to concentrate on his studies and ignore the jeers of Bako and Grab and Run. Every hour he went to the talking clock to find out when he was supposed to enter the Doghouse of Doom. Don't fret, not yet, the talking clock said to him each time he approached. But then, after leaving his Making Humans Sit, Shake, and Heal class, he heard the talking clock call his name. Howie Monroe, it's time to go. Howie Monroe, it's time to go. Running out into the courtyard, he looked up at the face of the clock and pleaded, Not yet, it's too soon. Too soon, too late. It is your fate, at 4:20, to go through the door. It was now 4:19. A minute later, everyone from the Dogwiz Academy for Canine Conjurers had gathered to see Howie off. Some held up signs that read, Good luck, Howie, and We believe in you. Howie noticed that Baco's sign read, So long, sucker. But what could you expect? I'm going in, Howie announced. Of course, with the mirror Hamlet had given him clenched between his teeth, it came out, Ow! Ageless Duffelbag, the headmaster of Dogwiz, rushed up to Howie, tying the mirror around his neck with a ribbon so Howie wouldn't have to speak with his mouth full and confuse the reader. It was bad enough with Hamlet and all those apostrophes. If all else fails, Duffelbag said to Howie, there is a spell that will turn the evil force, whose name cannot be spoke, into a bowl of split pea soup. It is... But before Duffelbag could say another word, the talking clock boomed, It's 20 past 4. Duffel bags aboard. The time is here to face your fear. There's Howie walking with the mirror.
Let me see. The Doghouse of Doom.
The whistling willow began to whistle. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Howie could not resist its siren call. He entered the doghouse, wondering how in the world he could defeat the evil force whose name could not be spoke. After all, he was only one small dachshund in a world gone mad, one tiny voice in a sea of voices, one pebble in a field of boulders, one itsy-bitsy minnow in a school of sharks. "Hello," he called out. "Hello yourself," a voice replied. Howie's writing journal. That is the best cliffhanger I've ever written. Now, I just have to figure out who the voice belongs to. I mean, it's got to be the evil force whose name cannot be spoke, right? Maybe not. What if there's some, monster waiting for Howie? Or maybe it's a ghost, or... Wait a minute. Who is the evil force whose name cannot be spoke anyway?
Herbert.
I'd better figure that one out first. This writing business involves way too much thinking. Chapter 7. The Lake of Lost Illusions. The doghouse was a lot bigger than it looked from the outside. Of course, Howie couldn't really tell how big it was because it was totally black. Black as the inside of a finely tuned... black as night. Still, he had the feeling it was really big because of the way his voice and the voice of whoever, or whatever it was, that answered him back echoed. "Who's there? There! There!" Howie called out. A chorus of voices answered this time. They sang, "Follow the road beneath your feet, we repeat. Follow the road beneath your feet, you will get where you're going."
Okay, now they're just mixing Wizard of Oz.
No duh, thought Howie, as a path lit up under his feet. With each step he took, the light continued to lead the way. Howie thought it was pretty cool, even though he didn't know where it was taking him. He figured it didn't really matter since he knew he was going to end up facing the evil force whose name could not be spoke.
Herbert.
And defeating him. He would probably have to turn him into plastic because he had the mirror and he didn't know the spell to turn him into a bowl of split pea soup. He was disappointed. Split pea soup was his favorite. What would he do with a plastic? The evil force whose name cannot be spoke. What would he do with a plastic, the evil force whose name could not be spoke? Wire him and turn him into a lamp, maybe? There's Howie walking with the mirror.
Oh. It looks
mirror
like a
that
clock. Show them what you
That
want.
look in the mirror. It looks like a clock.
No, it's not the mirror of Erised. "I heard that," a voice boomed. It was the same voice Howie had heard when he'd first entered the Doghouse of Doom. "Heard what?" Howie, the courageous and dauntless dachshund, replied bravely, panting just slightly enough to keep the sympathy of the reader. "The business about the lamp," said the voice. "You can hear my thoughts?" Howie asked. "Just one of my many talents," said the voice. "Want to know some more?" There was a blinding flash of light, a deafening crash of thunder, a suffocating puff of smoke, an exhausting slide show of scenes from the evil force whose name cannot be spoke's summer vacation on the Jersey shore. Okay, Howie cried out at last. "I get the idea." Suddenly, the lights went out under Howie's feet, and he found himself standing at the edge of a dimly lit lake. It was not the lake of laughable luck. He'd already been there, done that. But what lake was it? "It's the Lake of Lost Illusions," said the voice, reading Howie's thoughts. Howie went, "Oh," thinking how heavy the story had suddenly become, and how impressed his editor would be that he had turned literary without a moment's notice. As Howie's eyes adjusted to the light, he made out a thing sitting in the middle of the lake on some kind of pod. The thing was huge. He wished he could see better. A lamp or two wouldn't have been a bad idea. You've got lamps on the brain, the voice said. But too much light is a no-no. I'm surrounded by water. If I could see my reflection, I'd turn to plastic. So you're the evil force whose name cannot be spoke, Howie exclaimed. Gee, you're smart, said the evil force whose name cannot be spoke. That must be why you get to be the hero of the story. Okay, smart guy, here you are in the Doghouse of Doom, with the entire population of the Dog Wiz Academy, or Canine Conjurers, all 7 of your readers just waiting for you to defeat me and prove that you're the greatest dog wizard of all time. So what are you going to do about it, huh? Huh? What are you going to do? Howie wanted to think, gee, what an obnoxious bully. And I'll have you know, I have more than 7 readers. I have at least 8. But of course, he couldn't think that because the obnoxious bully would read his thoughts. Boy, he could understand why his parents didn't like this guy back in grade school. He knew he had to think of something else instead. He thought about the mirror. This was a mistake. That mirror's good for nothing, said the bully on the pod. 0, zip, zilch. After running out of Z words, he continued, You think you're the first one to try the mirror thing? Give me a break. On second thought, I'll give you a break. The ribbon around Howie's neck snapped as the mirror flew into the air and exploded into 1,000,000 pieces, or maybe 37. And now, said the evil force whose name cannot be spoke, I'm going to do that to you. Howie didn't like the sound of that. He thought of Delilah, who would miss him terribly since she'd forgiven him for giving her such a small part in this book. He thought of the Monroes, who weren't so bad once you got past their being cruel and miserable. He thought of Snivel and Hamlet and Hoppy and all the other new friends he'd made since coming to Dogwiz. It wasn't fair that he wouldn't get to see them again, wouldn't get to eat another meal in the Chamber of Chow, wouldn't get to write a sequel in what was destined to be the best-selling series of all time, wouldn't... I don't have time for such thinking, the evil force whose name cannot be spoke snarled, interrupting Howie's thoughts. I need to get on with it. I've been waiting for years to finish what I started when I squished your mommy and daddy. Now it's your turn. Ta-ta, Howie Monroe. 1, 2... There's Howie holding the mirror as it breaks into 1,000,000 pieces, or 37.
How do I count?
I'm not counting all those pieces.
Wait, 1, 2, 3.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, 58 pieces.
Howie's writing journal. Yikes! What am I going to do? I can't let that big, obnoxious evil force whose name cannot... Oh, the heck with it. Herbert. Destroy Howie. It just wouldn't be right. I'd get letters. People would stop reading my books. I'd have to go back to being not famous. But how am I going to save him? I'll ask Uncle Harold. Maybe I should ask Pop. 2. I should probably let my readers know that Pop is what I call Chester, the cat I live with, even if he's not in the story. Then again, I could just tell them to see Book 1. It Came from Beneath the Bed by Howie Monroe, and Book 2, Invasion of the Mind Swappers from Asteroid 6 by Howie Monroe. Okay, I asked Uncle Harold and Pop. Trademark, do you remember that? Yeah. Okay, I asked Uncle Harold and Pop. Uncle Harold said, you could try bringing in another character. Why would I do that? Anyway, I want Howie to save the day, not somebody else. He also said, look carefully at what you've already written. Maybe the answer is right in front of you. That means having to go back and actually read what I wrote. Doesn't he know I have better things to do with my time? Pop was no better. His advice had something to do with getting a life. Maybe I should do what Uncle Harold suggested. Let's see what happens if I bring another character in unexpectedly. I don't have time for such thinking, the evil force whose name cannot be spoke snarled, interrupting Howie's thoughts. I need to get on with it. I've been waiting for years to finish what I started when I squished your mommy and daddy. Now it's your turn. Ta-ta, Howie Monroe. 1, 2... Stop! A new voice cried out. Howie looked around to see who was there. He waited patiently for the author to figure it out. Suddenly, Hoppy hopped into view. Well, barely into view. Remember, there wasn't much light. "Hoppy," Howie said, "what are you doing here?" "Hoppy is here to help you, sir, and to protect a plot twist at a crucial moment." What, Dean?
That was the best Dobby voice ever.
You liked my Dobby voice, huh? That wasn't a Dobby voice, that was a Hoppy voice.
But still, it sounded exactly like Dobby.
Okay, Chapter 8. The Terrifying Transformation. What?
Did you unpause it?
No. It's still going.
Ah.
"But Hoppy," said Howie, the thoughtful and considerate, even when his own life was in danger dachshund, "you could be hurt. You could even be transformed into a toaster oven," bellowed the evil force whose name cannot be spoke. There was a blinding flash of light, a deafening roar of thunder, a suffocating puff of smoke. Fortunately, Howie was spared the slideshow, and Hoppy was turned into a toaster oven. "How could you?" Howie cried out in alarm. The evil force whose name cannot be spoke. "A toaster oven? You could have turned him into a microwave at least." "Is that what you'd like to be? Fine. Get ready to bake potatoes in just 10 minutes. There was a blinding flash of light, a deafening... Oh, you get the picture. Howie squeezed his eyes shut, ready to spend the rest of his life as a kitchen appliance, and then it hit him. Not the spell that would turn him into a microwave, but the single word that would break the evil force whose name cannot be spoke of his magic. There is Hoppy being turned into the toaster oven.
Oh, squashing him.
You can see his legs like sticking out underneath it.
Hoppy?
Uh-huh, like frog legs. You see him?
Let me see. Oh, so now Hoppy's being a microwave, and then
No,
they're gonna squish him with Hoppy?
He's not a microwave. Hoppy is now a toaster oven.
Is that even a thing?
Yeah.
He's turning him into a toaster oven, and now he's squishing him with
He's
Hoppy?
No. He's not. Howie's not being squished by Hoppy.
No!
Howie cried. "Don't do it, Herbert!" Light filled the doghouse of doom as the evil force whose name cannot be spoke, hearing his true name, screamed an ear-splitting scream. Howie watched in horror as the giant shape on the pod in the center of the lake of lost illusions twisted and turned, finally exploding in a shower of sparks. Howie was forced to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he couldn't believe what he saw. There, sitting on the pod thing, was a kitten. "Why, you're nothing but a pussycat," said Howie. "Yes," said the evil force whose name cannot be able to be spoke. "I was once a little pussycat who only wanted to love an occasionally saucer of warm milk. But I was left by the side of the road to fend for myself, and I turned mean and rotten. So mean and rotten that I picked on others. Your parents didn't understand. They called me a bully. Okay, I was a bully, I admit it. But it was only because I was afraid of being the one who got picked on first." Wow, Howie thought. This is even better than watching Oprah. Words appeared over Herbert's head. They were written in red smoke. Or was it ketchup? "Thank you." "Gosh," said Howie modestly and graciously. "You're welcome." "You have given me back my innocence," said Herbert the kitten. "You have given me hope for a new and better life. You have given me..." "Whatever," said Howie, suddenly remembering Hoppy, the toaster oven. "What about my friend? What are you going to do for him?" "I don't have to do anything," said Herbert. "You've already done that. Look, there in the water." "Where are you, Hoppy?" Howie called out. A tiny voice answered, "Here Hoppy is, sir. Hoppy is happy, sir. Hoppy is where Hoppy always wanted to be, sir."
A free frog!
Howie looked into the water. A happy tadpole was swimming laps. "Goodbye, Hoppy," Howie said.
See, I knew it.
"Goodbye, sir," said Hoppy. "Hoppy will always remember you." "Howie will always remember Hoppy too," said Howie, sniffling back a tear or two. Well, Howie thought as he watched Hoppy swim rapidly, I guess I'd better paddle out to the pod and rescue Herbert. "I heard that," said the kitten. Chapter 9. Not Safe Yet. When Howie emerged from the doghouse of doom with Herbert the kitten at his side, everyone cheered. Everyone, that is, but Baco. Grab and run. who threw their sign on the ground and stomped on it. Professor Sneak didn't look too pleased either. Howie decided there was something up about...
Malfoy's and his two minions and Snape.
Yeah.
Doyle.
Howie decided there was something up about Sneak that would deserve greater attention in another book. In the meanwhile, he was exhausted. Snivel, Delilah, and several other students carried him on their shoulders to the hospital house, where he spent the next few days sleeping and reading back issues of Canine Quarterly. Hamlet visited him regularly and chatted up a storm, sometimes leaving apostrophes lying around on the floor, which had to be swept up after him. Delilah brought up homework assignments from their classes and told him how brave and daring, not to mention courageous, she thought he was. She also asked how his bursitis was. When she did, she fluttered her eyelashes and made his heart go pit-a-pat. Snivel brought him a box of doggy treats his mother had baked just for the famous, heroic, kind, and wizardly Howie Monroe, in the shape of frogs. A nice touch, Howie thought, given how much he missed his friend Hoppy. Herbert sometimes dropped by to curl up next to him in bed and purr. Over time, Herbert lost his ability to read thoughts, which was a relief to Howie, who had grown tired of hearing Herbert say, "That's what you think." All in all, Howie was feeling pretty darn good about himself, and how he'd handled his first week at Dogwiz Academy for Canine Conjurers. In fact, the fact that he hadn't actually conjured anything yet, except for a quarter, and anybody could do that, didn't worry him. His full powers would come to him in time. He was looking forward to his years at Dogwiz, although not as much as he was looking forward to his next meal in the Chamber of Chow. A dinner was being planned in his honor, and he could hardly wait. There's Howie curled up with Herbert. Yeah.
Mr. Pussycat. Such a small body.
He looks like Chester.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's a cat, huh? All cats look alike? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Back in his own room for the first time in days,
Ugly.
he was getting ready to go down to dinner when a note was slipped under his door. Herbert batted it to him. It was written in letters that had been cut from what appeared to be issues of Preteen Conjurer. It read, "Just you wait, Monroe. You're not safe yet." "This is terrible!" Howie exclaimed. "No, it's not," said Herbert. "I will give you material for the sequel." "You're right, Herbert," said Howie. "Thank you." "It's nothing," said Herbert modestly. As the two friends went off to join Delilah and Snivel on their way to the Chamber of Chow, Howie was already thinking about his next adventure at the Dogwiz Academy for Canine Conjurers.
Oh, shoot.
Howie Monroe and the Enchanted Chewbone. The end. Dear Editor, here is the manuscript of my latest book. I hope you like it and don't think I'm stealing. If you don't like it, or if you do think I'm stealing, please don't tell me, because it will mean you won't publish my book, and then I will have to go back to not being famous. Sincerely yours, Howie Monroe. Dear Howie Monroe, I love your new book and I can't wait to publish it. It is a terrific parody. Yours truly, the editor. Howie's Writing Journal. Parody. Noun. Writing in which the language and style of an author or work is imitated for comic effect. Comic effect? This is a serious work of fiction. I can't believe my editor would call it a parody. I asked Uncle Harold if I should let the editor publish my book if he doesn't even recognize it for what it is. Do you want to go back to not being famous? Uncle Harold asked me. Good point. Another way to look at it, he went on, is that you were inspired by someone else's writing to create something original. Maybe your readers will be inspired by you. Wow, that would be so cool. Hey, maybe my readers will write Howie Monroe and the Enchanted Chewbone. Then I wouldn't have to. Not that I don't want to, but I don't know. I might want to try something really different next time.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I think it's time for me to take a nap. I've been up for way more than 2 hours, almost 3, and I'm beat. This writing is hard work. The end.